We're in the endgame now.
You do realize I have to nail this, right? You do realize that all that prattling on making what should be an hour-long video, instead of being 10 long videos, has to be done right? Like, you only get one shot of it before no one cares anymore, right? No pressure. Did you know The Bride was not the first one I was working on? Spoilers! Alright, enough of this. Let's start drawing. And if it sounds like I'm tired and lack energy, it's because I am! Oh, hallelujah, we're here. Right on October, thank God. No, seriously, thank God. I really couldn't have done it without him. Good night. My videos progressed longer and longer like they were the chapters of Poppy Playtime or something. Hopefully I didn't meander as much as Poppy's gameplay. Oh gosh, whatever the reason, we're finally here to make this OC. And if y'all spent time watching every one of my insane videos of me liking to hear myself talk, thank you. I'm not good at this, so I appreciate the love. And I'll make sure this series is worth your time, starting with this OC. Now that we fully understand the world and how the creators made this franchise, now we can confidently make an OC as earnest to the original source material as we possibly can. Why'd I do all this? Well, imagine someone coming into a product like Star Wars to tell a story. They have to know the creator's intent and the lore in order for a character to successfully fit and gel with the world. Right, Disney? This is what people do when they enter an IP not their own and expand on the lore every time. Or should do, right, Hollywood? Anyways, I respect the creators and I want to make this character feel as perfect as she can along the OG roster. As you can see, I draw her insane in the membrane because I want her the craziest fighter that ever existed in fighting games. For something like Darkstalkers, I'm surprised they don't have the insane girl archetype in there. Well, let's remedy that, shall we? And I mean as crazy as possible, to the point it's comical. Comical to the point that she's likable, but insane enough where she's kinda scary. So she'll fit into the comedy and horror camp. Since she's a homunculus under the same style as a Frankenstein, she's gotta be strong. So we'll give her a fit and toned body, kind of like Felicia. This will also help with the sexy aspect, not to mention the fact that crazy girls always get attention in media. And the fact we're still giving her a nice body yaddy yaddy. As for the drama, that'll be a part of her backstory, and every good Frankenstein homunculus creature always has a very sad and depressing backstory, and she'll be no different. But remember, Darkstalkers is Tex Avery-esque, so her insanity is more Looney Tunes based. For Pete's sakes, it was inspired by Tom and Jerry itself, so it has to be there, and she has to be that. That's where the funny will come from. I was thinking for her pose and animation like that of one of the nurses from Silent Hill. Their poses are sexy, feminine, unhinged, ghoulish, and scary. Like some sort of feminine undead serial killer. Just perfect for this character, who we'll call Dr. Frankie for now, because it just fits. Because, you know, she kind of is. You know, goth is making a comeback. That's what all the merchandise, marketing, TikTok videos of bimbos wearing black clothes and makeup are telling me, because if there's one thing goth always was about, and that's shilling out with clout-chasing conformism. That's what I remember. Oh wait, that's emo. Mid-2000s, anyone? See, I want this chick to have a gothic feel, specifically an early Tim Burton-y aesthetic to her. But I also need to know what Tim Burton was inspired by. And he was inspired by those creepy silent films like Metropolis, Nosferatu, and especially The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari in his early childhood. You can see that style everywhere. Especially when every male lead back then looked like Johnny Depp at the time. Which is what I'm inspired by as well. And with that punchy oingo boingo counterculturalism vibe that Timmy Boy likes, ah yes, all that works well with the silly. Not only that, that silent film era was the perfect era for gothic monster films as well. So let's add a bit of that vibe in there. Predominantly, the darkened eyes, the wild pupils, like some Disney and anime do when characters lose it. But it's the hair that needs the most attention. See, the hair is the central and most notable piece about the bride. It's integral for her design. But I don't want her looking like Marge Simpson, so let's give her a Japanese influence. Yeah. How about a Super Saiyan edge? Yeah, that might work. I mean, the female Saiyans look still sexy with that hair, so she can too. I mean, hair-wise, she's already gonna be sexy regardless. Name me a crazy girl that hasn't become gooner bait in pop culture. Give her white lightning streaks in her hair to really emphasize that Bride of Frankenstein look. Finally, to make it feel very Tim Burton-y, I want that Helena Bonham Carter mess of a hair. That final touch-up of a mess would just cinch it just enough to be its own original thing. But I also keep going back to that one ridiculously crazy and sexy chick and that wild hair of hers in the awesome punk horror film Tetsuo the Iron Man, played by Nobu Kanaoka. That's almost too perfect to ignore. Actually, a lot of Frankie's design comes from her. There's something chaotic of a vibe I want her to have, akin to Rocky Horror Picture Show and Forbidden Zone. But she's still an innocent, though. There's a virginal innocence about her, similar to a child hearing a dirty joke in a playground but doesn't fully understand what it means. And that cherry on top is the curly Q at the top of her hair, which is supposed to be similar to QB's curly hair, which also has a Tim Burton vibe. Tap it down with some curly bangs, and she's got that look. To break up the monotony of her hair, she'll wear those goggles similar to what Digimon characters wore back in the day. It'll also go well with this tattered mad scientist design I'm going with her on this. Oh yes, she's gonna be a mad scientist as well too. It's that little extra every Darkstalkers character needs. I mean, she's mad, she's built on mad science, so make her a mad scientist, duh. That's why I'm giving her this nice, massive robotic arm prosthetic filled with over-the-top medical tools. It's the perfect gimmick to have her do some silly gags and unique movesets. It'll be powered by a backpack thing she'll wear, with 4 of those iconic electric Jacob's Ladder insulators on each corner of the pack. No mad scientist is without those iconic instruments. Like Victor, her body is filled with electricity, so she built a device to control the current for her arm, and I think it improves the mad scientist aesthetic, personally. Speaking of movesets, I like the idea of her body being stitched up to where she can dismember herself and fling her body parts at the enemy. Yeah, I think I'm onto something here. I like the idea of when she kicks, her leg splits apart, making a longer reach, or just flinging her body parts as a moveset. And I really want to do something crazy, like she can transform her body type as some sort of movesets. Something really zany. Oh, I got one. What if her robotic hand can shoot out like a grapple to grab opponents and or the stage to move around quicker? Oh man, that's sick as an idea. At least I think so. It'd be like Marvel vs. Capcom's 3's character, the Bionic Commando Spencer, where he can hookshot around the stage and or characters, where he can get into the faces of characters or out of danger. It would be some unique fighting moves, and Darkstalkers thrives on unique fighting moves. Just look at Anacharis, which, now come to think of it, I think the real correct pronunciation is Anacharis, since Charis is a character from The Mummy. The Universal Monsters movie. Well, The Mummy's Hand, to be precise, is where Charis first appeared. And is where Anacharis' name is based off of, now that I think about it. Oh well, better late to know that than never, I guess. Yeah, I know I'm rambling. I'm tired. Leave me alone. The design of her has to be simple. In art class, we were taught the KISS rule. Keep it simple, stupid. So, for her design, she has to be simple. I mean, we'll have to be animating her for starters. And for secondary reasons, the OG Darkstalker cast worked in pixelated form. Small versions of themselves. So, we'll do a pixelated version to match her size with the others, just to see if the information is enough to know exactly what you're looking at. Lord Raptor is probably the most detailed of the bunch, so if we keep her detail about on par of Lord Raptor's, I think we'll be in the clear. The color scheme also has to be simple. In Darkstalkers and most Capcom characters back in the day, the design team would work with a main 4-color palette, so it has to match that number, and 4 to 5 smaller detailed colors, making the max number possibly 8 to maybe 9. Again, Lord Raptor has the most colors on him. One thing's for sure though, it seems when Capcom does the undead, their skin is almost always a pale blue. So ours must also be a pale blue. But I might be able to get away with a pale turquoise. I don't know, we'll see. The simpler the color scheme, the simpler the design, the easier it is to spot in a smaller format, and it's easy enough for a kid to draw fan art of. Not only that, it's just more pleasing to look at, you know? Again, less is more. The big final thing when it comes to character design is a good silhouette appearance. Where if you were to put our OC silhouette with the rest of the silhouettes of the rosters, you could tell them apart very easily. So it's got to be a striking silhouette. In order to do that, her signature elements need to be very much emphasized to tell them apart. Like her big Frankenstein bride hair, and her big bionic arm, and possibly the gadgets on her backpack. That would help out immensely to go, yeah, that's our OC right there. I also took some liberties and lifted some of Victor's previous designs and slapped it on our Frankie here, to give it that cohesive feel between Victor and Frankie. Perhaps the creator of Victor is one of the doctors that left. I don't know, I want the lore of her to be relatively its own thing without too much attachment to the existing roster, just only hinted. I don't need a bad DeviantArt OC here. And it's also not like Capcom hasn't lifted ideas from their rough drafts before, you know? Speaking of Frankie, the final thing is the name. Practically all names of the Darkstalkers are Easter eggs of either actors or mythological characters that connect with that character in some way. So we have to do the same. Why not use the writer of Frankenstein's name, Mary Wollstonecraft? Mary is just perfect for a bride name, and being the rarest of the rare female writers for a classic monster icon, it just makes sense, man. Although her married name was Mary Shelley, so we'll work on that. However, you know, I know, and everyone else knows, Frankie just fits too good for this character. But, you know, I know, and everyone else knows, that name is too overused. So, how about Frankie-Marie? It's just different enough to be its own thing. It fits the marrying thing, and it pays homage to the original writer. So her name shall be christened Dr. Frankie-Marie Wollstonecraft, who hails from Switzerland, since it's been said that Switzerland is where the writer got her inspiration for Frankenstein. It's a work in progress, but I like Frankie-Marie. It just rolls off the tongue really, really well. Oh yeah, a good design also needs a good backstory to help boost it up. And it needs to feel like a Darkstalkers type backstory. So, how do you make the Bride of Frankenstein into a Darkstalker fighter? Well, by herself, she can't. But like the other characters, mixing her with a bit more might do the trick. Victor kinda took all the tropes away from the Bride, so we'll have to create a new one. Remember, Darkstalkers is very malleable in its creativity, as long as it has a Halloween or horror monster trope attached, be it media or fantasy. And the tropes have to be something that the Eastern and Western world can identify fairly quickly. Well, the yandere mad scientist homunculus is a pretty good touch. She's reanimated, so her brain isn't right, and the original Bride's brain was a bit abnormal as well. Plus, all the electroshock therapy to reanimate her doesn't help in the sanity department, I bet. And since Mad Doctors have been in fighting games before, she's a perfect addition. But she needs a bit more oomph in the character department. What if she was a bride made for an original Frankenstein monster? Maybe two Mad Doctors collab together to create a race of reanimated monsters from the dead as a super race for the next gen of humankind. Perhaps the original Frankenstein monster was created first, then the bride. But before the two monsters got married, the Frankenstein husband malfunctioned and blew up. Now, there's a bride without a husband. Perhaps the two doctors split up, and now the one doctor took pity on the bride, whose sole purpose of existing is to be a bride for a Frankenstein monster. Her sole purpose was obliterated, and the doctor took pity on her. He treated her like she was his own daughter. So, he came up with a plan. Even though his friend left, he worked diligently to recreate what they had made, but perfect it. A husband for the bride. But each time throughout his life, it was a malfunctioning failure, and he was getting older, and he was dying slowly of old age. Or maybe the story is he found Dr. Gurdenheim's original drafts, but they were failures too, and he couldn't get the formula right to get the husband and wife duo. The husband still explodes, but the wife's still intact, just without a husband. There's all kinds of variables we can take this. The story's still similar, and it still ends with the doctor not quite getting the formula right and dying of old age. Before the doctor died of old age or something, he gave a piece of his brain into the bride, the intellectual side, so she could create her own husband. And the bride has attempted for years to create the perfect husband, but not getting the full formula due to the other doctor leaving and died from old age or something as well. Or the unfinished notes angle. She's going slowly more and more and more impatient and insane because her purpose is still not quite fulfilled yet to have a husband to breed and mate with more homunculus babies. Her unhealthy void of not being a wife or a husband is still not met. Now she's driven madder than ever, and now we got this psycho stalker yandere trope for a mad scientist Frankenstein bride that hunts men down, not for the men exclusively, but for their body parts. Now tell me that ain't cool. She could have even like a fun catchphrase, like, "Don't worry, I can change them, literally." Oh yeah, we're cooking tonight, boys. Now we have something truly scary and truly dramatic going on here that fits with every Darkstalkers trope. with this nice cathartic message of not always getting what you want and how to cope with it. I love that little tragic backstory with this little sliver of hope at the end of it all. Maybe I'm a little pretentious here, but I think I'm cooking. What do y'all guys think? Come to think of it, I don't think they've ever did a variant of the bride like this before. Mostly the bride is afraid of the monster, not obsessed over him. Well, it certainly is an improvement over that bitchy one from James Gunn's version of Creature Commando. Yeah, I said it. Well, I think I explained everything here, but I'm still drawing. So, the only thing left to do is talk about why I'm doing this. Now, I was going to cover a D-Stain car and the wokeism, but the more I got involved with this, the more I realized that is a very deep rabbit hole I just don't want to go down. It would be too long and I don't have time to explain it all. So, right now we'll do the consolidated version of it, and we'll explain it more in depth in Season 2. So, why am I doing all this? Well, because I like Darkstalkers. Duh. But there is another reason. Let me ask you something. We all in the fighting game sphere want to see Capcom make another Darkstalkers game, but we never stop to ask if they should.
They're so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Now, I know what you're thinking. After all I went through, it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but bear with me here. This is an ugly truth, but it needs to be told. Okay, now I bring up why I talk about so much woke shit in my series. And I know people don't like this topic, but it's crucial from where I'm going with this point. And it's another reason probably why Darkstalkers isn't coming back anytime soon. Whilst also being a reason why it should come back. Remember when I said Sweet Baby Inc. is the tip of the iceberg? Well, let me give you the long and the short of it. Sweet Baby Inc. is just a dime a dozen of many, many consultant agencies in the industry. And not all do the exact same thing. Many focus on PR, marketing, hooking up with distributors, help flesh out a long-term strategy, financing, a business plan, the works. Stuff other studios just don't have the time for all of it, especially fledgling ones. In many ways, these agencies are a necessity. I prefer AI myself. Some call themselves localization agencies, but it's the same company just with a different hat. But there are others that focus on narrative and design as well. A lot of these agencies are starting to do it all now. This is where the problem lies, because I've yet to see one of these narrative ones that didn't look like SJW shit. And it's getting harder and harder to sift through all of them to find the bad actors. And I would argue it's by design. I mentioned hit detection as one, but there's another one that needs to be addressed, and that's Terra localizations. And they are the exact same shitty SJW ones. Look, I know talking about these topics brings down the mood extensively. I get it, but I promised I was going to talk about these topics. Also, to keep it short, I'm going to take clips from these two guys that helped me with this research, Scouter V and It's a Gundam. It also shifts the focus away from me. Ha!
Here's a glimpse at some of the weirdo activists masking themselves as localizers at a company called Terra Localizations. Now, I'm not going to cover everything, but just know that this rabbit hole goes deep. Just a few months ago, they met up with the senior manager of localization at Capcom, Marco Bombazzi, also the localization project manager at CD Projekt Red, Alexander Redkovich, and finally Miriam Ray-Fanrath, the senior localization project manager at Riot Games back in June.
For example, you see these female characters that are more or less destined to please the male gaze. The more and more you grow up, you start to understand how messed up that is.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Anyways, I had to suffer through a whole hour of this feminist slop, so let me just sum it up for you.
Male gaze.
The male gaze. You can select the character's gender identity regardless of the physical traits. I thought that's very cool.
To disregard the gaming community in these matters, whether the traditional gamers are ready for it or not.
So all these things we hate in Capcom, like the massive censorship Street Fighter V went through, the censorship of stages in modern Street Fighter II re-releases, the cropped artwork of Mai Shiranui in Capcom Fighting Collection 2, and the queer baiting in Street Fighter VI, all of these things in Capcom I just mentioned, we now know who's to blame. And now that we know all of this, can you imagine what will happen when Felicia and Morrigan come to town in a Darkstalkers 4?
Oh no!
This is yet another reason why they won't make a Darkstalkers 4 anytime soon. Stay the fuck away from Felicia. Woke propaganda kills everything I love, like 343 Industries did with Halo. And your new logo fucking sucks, too. Now you understand. But you can't get rid of them. They're like bedbugs or cockroaches. They are everywhere. Even if one dies, another one will just take its place. It makes you ask, who's funding all this? Well, this is where we get to the real scary part. It's the investors. The investors that own practically the entire gaming industry market. BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, who also own each other's stocks, meaning they all have the exact same agenda. And what's that agenda, you might ask?
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year. And what we are doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted, okay?
We're doing the same thing.
And so it's just, you have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said. And ultimately, it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities. And we're going to have to force change.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
And I'm not kidding when I say they own every AAA studio in the world. If you look at any of their stock markets, one of the 3 names is going to be there, particularly Vanguard. Here's It's a Gundam to explain more on this topic.
Many of these game companies, BlackRock and Vanguard, own at least 5 to 10% in stock in. We're talking of billions of dollars are invested in each of these. Here are 2 examples. I picked them at random. EA and Blizzard, since they are both pretty lame game developers that make trash, and they also pander like there's no tomorrow, like they care about people while making trash and overworking their employees like they're dogs. If you look at Blizzard, here's their breakdown. Vanguard number 1, BlackRock number 2. If you look at EA shares, BlackRock is number 1, Vanguard is number 2, damn near almost identical amounts of shares. They have $3 billion in each. Basically, the long and the short of it is BlackRock and Vanguard are huge into ESG investing, or should I call it sustainable investing.
Go check out Scouter V and It's a Gundam. They helped a lot with my research on this. But like I said before, I did my own extensive research, and the rabbit hole runs much deeper than that, and it's very scary down in hell. But that's a story for another time, my friends. Instead, I'll wrap this up and tie it all together. You have these game industries who need a lot of assistance. These consultant agencies become a necessity. Not only that, I bet it's a requirement from the investors up top. The investors encourage this shitty woke behavior, and there's no way these game companies can refuse. And since Darkstalkers is not a politically correct game, Capcom's hands are tied. However, While Capcom USA might be jeopardized, all's not lost in Capcom of Japan, the main headquarters. Japan looks out for each other, and they have a huge share of the stocks. What they can do is contract it out to a smaller company that's not caught under the SJW grasp. And I fear it better happen soon, for Darkstalkers as a brand might die in the very immediate future. The top 3 investors don't own just AAA studios alone. They own the entire entertainment industry as well. And this is where we get to Adi Stankar.
So I,
Yep.
This is where I'm going with all of this. Now, I've already discussed how Adi Stankar is IP poison on Netflix, but he does preach their mantra. He's already ruined a Capcom IP. Now he's expressed wanting another fighting game IP. I think you know where I'm going with this. If he gets it, he'll fuck it up royally with the woke crap. And the worst part? Darkstalkers is barely existent in pop culture today. No one really knows what it is. If he gets it, this will be the next generation's first introduction to Darkstalkers, instilling in their minds that that is what it is, thus ensuring Darkstalkers' permanent death. And the sad part is, this is an inevitability. I know it sounds like tinfoil hat doom and gloom, but don't doubt me on this. I've already explained how this guy's an egomaniac. Just look at him. Is this fucking normal? And he doesn't care what he destroys, as long as he gets to push his say in the matter.
Oh, this is like a modern fucking thing? Like this is ongoing? Then I should have done Street Fighter.
Cringe.
I would be genuinely happy if Capcom makes a Darkstalkers 4. I really would. I can still do what I'm doing here, and my plan can still work out just fine, and more importantly, I get to enjoy a Darkstalkers 4 game to play. Heck yeah, I want more of the lore too. But again, it has to be a Darkstalkers game in true form and spirit. Now, it's possible that Capcom will throw a curveball and create a Darkstalkers 4. But how? And why? I've already explained the reasons that it doesn't seem likely. Street Fighter 6 is their baby. It's where all the fighting game designers at Capcom are laser focused on. And whatever fighting team is left is gonna be working on the ever-anticipated sequels of Capcom vs. SNK, then Marvel vs. Capcom. That's already been hinted and implied. That's probably what that second building they're making for Capcom is for. Now I'm gonna say this. If there was gonna be a fighting game franchise they'll bring back, the odds are it's Rival Schools. For a business standpoint, it's the better choice. They already have their 2.5D fighting game, and 3D is starting to get more attention with Tekken and the new Virtua Fighter around the corner. Rival Schools would be different enough to focus on that. Not only that, it's the more requested, and it's the game series that shares fighters with Street Fighter 6, helping Street Fighter be more relevant in the process. Rival Schools is something different and in greater demand. Darkstalkers is not. But they could make a Darkstalkers 4, and I would be happy with that. However, in order to pull that off, you'll need to find a AA studio or something smaller like an independent studio that can work on a smaller budget, know exactly what Darkstalkers is and its confusing mess, respect the franchise while making it something unique, and finally, for a politically incorrect game like Darkstalkers, you need a politically incorrect studio. And that ain't easy with this hostile climate. Remember, if Looney Tunes is considered now politically incorrect, then so will Darkstalkers. Oh, thank goodness that depressing discussion is over now. I hated talking about this topic. Let's just focus on this picture. And I'm almost done with this picture. I've hit everything I wanted to do and covered the most important parts in character design. So, I'll remain quiet as I conclude this drawing. All right, let's take a look at it in its full glory. Yeah, I still got work to do. She's still too busy. She needs to be simplified. I'll work on it some more. Even though I've done a couple examples of her, she still needs a little bit more work. So next season, we'll do just that, along with some other character ideas I've got. Alright, let's wrap up these thoughts because I really don't want to end on a sour note like I just did. However, yeah, it's true. It does look hopeless for Darkstalkers. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is still hope. What if this fun little project I'm making is good? I mean real good. What if it gets so good it gets Capcom's attention? Capcom has paid attention to indie projects before. What if Capcom loves it and wants me to try out on reviving Darkstalkers itself? It's a long shot, sure, but why not try for it, you know? Why not do the impossible just for fun? Look, Japan don't give a fuck about wokeness. Well, not the same way we do. If I'm successful, not only do I get what I want out of this project, but it will also prove that us little guys can put a black eye on the corporate Hollywood machine. We can show they're no longer needed. What do I have to lose? Why not go for it? Let's take that chance. Let's punch wokeness right in the face and tell these 1%ers you're not needed anymore. Let's go for the impossible. Let's make the joy of art mean something again. Let's prove to myself, some nobody, that can have the chance to reach for the stars. I still believe, and I can think of no better subject than Darkstalkers. Have a happy Halloween, everyone, and a good night for now.
Walking the streets, look at the faces that I meet, feel like I Yes, I still believe through the shame, through the grief, through the heartache, through the tears, through the wait, through the years. For people like us, in places like this,